Welcome to the Brigham Young University Family History Library webinar series. Feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions, and if we are unable to answer them during the presentation, we will go through all remaining questions at the end. My name is Braden Knutson. I will be your host for this webinar. Today we will be pleased to hear from Terry Dahlin, who will be speaking on how to find your ancestors at the BYU Family History Library. Terry Dahlin is head of the Brigham Young University Family History Library. He has received a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in library science from BYU and has done advanced graduate work at the University of Utah. He has been a presenter on family history and genealogy topics at a number of genealogy conferences. He has been involved in libraries and genealogical research for many years. He currently serves as director of the Grove Creek Family History Center in Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Brigham Young University has been very involved in family history over the years and has become well known, but it's interesting that the Brigham Young University as an educational institution has become well known for perhaps its sports teams, football, basketball, etc. Its focus on Christian higher education, performing groups, singing, dancing groups have been very distinguished in other programs. But there's one important trait that has often been neglected. Many people don't think of BYU as an excellent place or a destination to do genealogy research. In fact, even those that live in the Provo or Utah County area sometimes aren't always aware of the genealogical services offered by BYU. First, it might help to give a little bit of background about the BYU Family History Library. First of all, the Harold B. Lee Library is the overall central library for Brigham Young University. The BYU Family History Library is an area within the Harold B. Lee Library, and it's the main location where we provide genealogical services to students, faculty, and to the public. And there are also other departments within the Harold B. Lee Library that offer services to family historians and genealogists. Now you might ask yourself, why should I bother to go to the Harold B. Lee Library, the BYU Harold B. Lee Library, to do research on my ancestors? There's some excellent reasons. First of all, as an academic research library, the library literally has large and vast repositories of genealogical information, and I'll talk more in depth about that as we go through. Another important point is we have collection breadth and depth. For example, some specialized libraries might have great depth in a particular subject area, such as the law library. But the Harold B. Lee Library, because it covers many subjects, has great breadth. For example, we have areas such as sociology, broader studies in history, maps and geography, genetics, and anthropology and cultural studies, other areas of study and collections in the library and at the university that can be very helpful for you in finding your ancestors. And of course, certainly the library, and not just the BYU Family History Library, but also the whole Harold B. Lee Library and several of its departments, other departments, places a strong emphasis on family history, perhaps due to the interest of its sponsoring institution. We provide helpful staff and missionaries to anyone coming into the library, librarian staff, student technicians, missionaries that are very helpful and are anxious or passionate about family history and anxious to help you. We offer free classes and webinars. I'll be showing you a bit more about that in this presentation. And nearly everything else is free at the university, which is an important reason to come as well. Just to give you a little more detail about how vast our collections are, we have over 4.1 million print books in print, 3 million microforms, 84,000 periodical titles, and that doesn't mean journals, that means individual runs. So there are a vast number of periodical and journal titles, 283,000 print maps, and also many online maps, and we'll talk more about that. 364,000 government documents in print and many online. And as many of you already know, there are many records of great value for genealogical research that are published by the government. We have over 350 computer databases, and we have an extensive special collections area that we will talk. I'll give more detail about a little later. Now let's start by looking at the physical layout of the BYU Family History Library. If you come to the Harold B. Lee Library, you enter the ground level as you walk in the doors is on the 3rd level. The ground floor is on the 3rd level. So the Family History Library, you go down the elevators and go to the northeast corner, and that is where the BYU Family History Library is. Again, the primary center for family history services are provided here. As you walk in those doors, you will see a help desk. There we have staff and student employees that can be very helpful to you, help getting a computer account, checking out books, using and understanding scanners. We have student techs that help with computer operations and a variety of other services in helping you to do your family history. Next to them, we have desks where we have over 130 missionary consultants. These missionaries have more experience in genealogical research and are more trained to help you with the details of your family history research. One great benefit we have at BYU is we have over 300,000 family history library microfilms. These are microfilms that contain many original records on a variety of subjects, and we have collected them over the years, and they have many of the records and record sets that people ask for here. And if you are able to find one, great. If not, we can order it for you, and those remain in our collection. And I'll show you how to do that a bit later. We also have newspapers on microfilm. Now, many newspapers have gone online, and we'll talk more about that as well. But some of the newspapers in Utah are small enough that there is no interest at this point in scanning and making them available online. And so we still are able to get them on microfilm, and they're available here for use in the library. We also have on microfilm and microfiche, we have city directories and a variety of other sources that can help you with your research. Inside our area, we have a public computer lab, and computer lab is open to the public, and there's 68 computers, and one great advantage we have is we are able to load on these specialized family history software that is free for you to use that can help you speed up your family history research. We have an excellent collection of scanners. In fact, we have 10 Microform scanners. I say Microform because they will scan and read both microfilm, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and microfiche, which are the mylar cards, transparent mylar cards that are 4 by 6 inches approximately. And so you can read these, you can scan these, and they're fast and efficient and do good quality. We have several photo scanners also. There's a greater emphasis now on getting photos recorded and shared, and we have, for example, the machine shown here is a Kodak PS80, which can scan photos very quickly and at a high quality resolution. We have a variety of other scanners. We have large format scanners for larger documents, and they also double as slide scanners, and they can also do photographic negatives. So they are very useful, and they do very good quality. We have sheet feed scanners. We bought 2 new ones recently that will do up to 100 loose pages a minute and at a good resolution. So it really helps you to speed up your work. We have scanners, and several are called OpticBook that you can do 1 page at a time. There's a beveled edge, so it won't destroy the book, and it can do a variety of sizes. Those are very useful. We have a Zeta made by a company called Zoichel. That is an overhead book scanner. We can do 2 pages at a time and just provides a different type of book scanning. We provide older style microfilm readers. You'll notice that we work hard at the BYU Family History Library to provide cutting edge technology to make your family history research, your family history work effective and efficient and up to date. But there are some sources and some people that still enjoy using the older technology. So we try to meet the needs of all of our patrons. So we still have 22 of the analog readers, meaning not digital, and you can use them there. You can load a microfilm and use it as a microfilm reader in the way we used to in the past. They're still available. We have standard printers, black and white and color printers. We also have a large format printer, that allows you to do larger documents. For example, fan charts have become quite popular, and you can print. Family Search has a 4 or 5 generation fan chart. You can do up to 9 using a product called TreeSeek. So we have do have the ability to print these larger fan charts. Now we've talked about the physical space at the BYU Family History Library. Let's look at the virtual space, meaning the resources that we provide online to you as family history workers that are available to you. First of all, let's go to the library, Harold B. Lee Library homepage. That's at lib.byu.edu. And as you scroll down the page, you can see a link to, follow the arrow, a link to the Family History Library. And so that takes you to the Family History Library homepage, which actually is a portal to a large number, almost 1,000 individual online resources. So it's an excellent place to begin your research. And I'll first just highlight that like today, we offer free classes and webinars. So if you click on that, you can see that we have, which we've had for many years, we have in-library classes that are offered on the second and fourth Sundays. And you can attend those. There's a schedule here. Also, you can call, for example, bring in a youth group or a Relief Society group or a university group to do tours or classes. There's a number to call there for in-person. For online webinars, we have a new program we've just begun recently that will provide webinars, will provide classes for those that cannot come in based on scheduling, location, or health conditions, and we'll be able to help you get educated and trained in doing your own research. We also have a YouTube video channel, and we have a number of which are typically shorter courses for you to help you in your research. Now on the online webinars, we have a place where you can sign up on this page. If you put your name and email address, we will keep you up to date on what's coming up. You can click on the current month schedule. Past presentations will be recorded and maintained there, and we have longer ones and shorter ones for the different purposes. So we try to provide a broad range of educational opportunities for people doing their family history work. Let's get a little bit more acquainted with the virtual space or the web resources available. First of all, you can click on the alphabetical list listed at the top, and there we have a large number of resources. You can scroll through it and navigate easily. For example, if you're looking for African American newspapers, you can just quickly, fairly intuitively scan the A letter and find them. And as I said, we have nearly 1,000 of these sources. So many of them are, we try and get the most valuable databases and websites for your interest. This is an important time to make a good point. There are really 2 types of online sources that are hosted on our BYU Family History Library webpage. Now, many of these sources, the first type, are open source. That means many of these are listed that can be accessed from anywhere at no charge. You can do it from home, your apartment, or on the road even, and there's no charge for them. And we really enjoy doing that. There are other online sources on the list that are extremely important, that are done by commercial businesses, but they're also very expensive. And so as the university pays for these to purchase rights to these and access to these databases, they can only be accessed within the library, and that's not our desire, that's due to publishers' restrictions because of the profit motive in the business world. So don't be put off if you try to get a source and it won't allow you. It means you could come into the BYU Library, Family History Library, and get access to it for free because of that publisher's restriction. A couple of other services that are up front on the page. If you look at the arrow on the upper right, if you click on FHL Films and Fiche at BYU, these are those 300,000 plus Family History Library films we have. You can enter a number there to see if we have that particular number. And just to note, we use the same classification system they use at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. So you can go on Family Search and search the catalog, And if you find a microfilm you want to look at and find the number, you can type it in here and see if we have it. And if so, you can come in and use it. Now, if it shows it's not there, you're welcome to come in to order it, and we can order it from Family Search. And it takes typically 10 to 14 days to come in. And once it comes in here, it stays here and can be used repeatedly. So it's an excellent service. As we mentioned earlier, we have lots of different kinds of scanners. And if you come in and then this particular scanner is not being used, you're welcome to use it at that point. And but if you want to make sure that you don't waste a trip, you can click on the scanner reservations. It lists the major scanners, and you can come in and you can see in the middle some are already reserved. You can come in and click on those and reserve them up for up to 2 hours at a time, to make sure that you are guaranteed to have a scanner for your efforts. And here on the right hand, you'll notice on the center section we have classified things according to categories. Below the alphabetical list, you'll see digital state archives, classes and webinars, which you've talked about, libraries and historical societies, maps, newspapers, and their other listings. And so those are ways to help you be more laser guided in finding the things you want rather than just scrolling through the alphabetical list. Now on the right-hand side, under the scanner reservation, we have put some of the key databases that people use all the time, the huge and popular databases. The first one, of course, is Family Search, which provides many services and literally billions of records and is free to the public. We won't spend a lot of time on that because likely many of you are acquainted with that. We also provide access to Ancestry.com, and this is Ancestry is one of those that's somewhat restrictive because it's a very powerful and important database and quite expensive. You can use it inside the library, but not outside. Now we have the edition that we have here that's free is called the Library Edition, and is under that category. I explained that there's some restrictions. Now you can also come in to the library or use it from home. If you're a member of the LDS Church, you can use that Partner Access program and get access to the LDS edition without having to pay as well. Again, Ancestry is another one of those wonderful, large, multifaceted databases you can use for your research, and that's provided free in the library. Another very important one is Find My Past. Find My Past is a company headquartered in the United Kingdom, and is most likely the best place for you to start if you have British ancestors. If you think you have ancestors from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, any of the British, any of the United Kingdom, this is a great place to start. Now, Family Search and Ancestry and other databases also have quite a number of records, but Find My Past is in country. They have a great relationship with, they're very aggressive, they have a great relationship with their government and the National Archives in England, and have access to many wonderful resources. Mormon Migration is an interesting site. I particularly like this one because I'm directly involved in it, and we'll show you a little more detail. First of all, this is strictly for LDS or Mormon ancestors, and what Dr. Fred Woods, in his studies of some years ago, found that there was a lot written and a lot of scholarly work about pioneers that had come across the plains in the United States, migrating to Utah. But there was a lack of research and lack of information about how those people, many of whom came from other countries, ever got from their country to the United States. So this Mormon Migration website is intended to help with that. Now, just to walk you through quickly to show you some of the features, it's very multifaceted, is there's a person, Paul Dahlin, who could easily be my ancestor. Now it's spelled a little differently, but you know already, I'm sure, about using different spellings for names which may well be the same person. So we type in Paul Dahlin, and sure enough, he's in the database. We find that the ship he came on was the William Tapscott. He left from Liverpool. And took the trip to New York, and it was from April to May 1859. As you click on his name, you see more information. You can see more detail, and there are accounts of his voyage where people in this group wrote about their experiences. They have journals, they have autobiographies and stories. So it's a rich array of resources to help you learn more about not just identifying the person, but what the experiences they may have had coming across the ocean. If you go more in depth, you can see Paul Dahlin was from Sweden, which is interesting. He went from Sweden into England and then across the ocean. 29 years old, a laborer. And if you look down where the passengers may be related, there was Elna and Hilda, who very likely are his wife and daughter. It's not clear. You need to do a little more research, but it's a very helpful guide to find them. And then there's a thumbnail there below their names where you're able to look at the raw image of the actual books that were used that show the migration information. So lots of interesting information. World Vital Records is another important source. World Vital Records, the World Vital Records database is a MyHeritage product. Now, in MyHeritage, you can develop your own personal family trees. In World Vital Records, you don't, but it still contains most of the records that are available through the MyHeritage site. So a very useful source. In some ways, excellent for doing research in broader areas of Europe. Heritage Quest is a large database created by a company called ProQuest, an important one. They have been famous for some time for their ease of use of their census records. They have them all from 1790 through 1940 that have the personal information available. They also have other important areas, city directories, mortality schedules, and some veterans information. You'll notice also that they have a large number of ebooks online, digital books available to you immediately on family history and genealogy and local histories as well. They also have information on immigration and military and cemetery records. So this is an important one for you and it's quite easy to use. We have a relatively newer collection of county histories. Now, I mentioned earlier in the social sciences area, we have large print collections also, but we also are collecting more and more county histories and local histories online. And so, for example, we don't have all the states yet. We have approximately 40, and it's a work in progress. They are available, again, free. This is one that has to be used in the library and brings wonderful information. These local histories not only help you identify a particular ancestor, they often have stories, things about neighbors, the history of the communities where they live. So they're fascinating resources for you to help you understand the lives and experiences of your ancestors. The same company also provides other things that we have purchased. They have an African American newspapers collection. They're very good on Civil War documents. And one thing that in my mind is very important, we were able to purchase colonial newspapers, meaning prior to the 1800s, which are quite rare. For example, we have the Pennsylvania Gazette, which is the newspaper that Benjamin Franklin edited. We have South Carolina, Virginia Gazette. So these are hard to find newspapers. If you have ancestors in that colonial period, then these are excellent sources, particularly prior to 1776. Fold 3 is it's an Ancestry.com product. It's a subset of that. Originally started as being mostly focused on military records. And in some ways, it still has that focus. So if you had an ancestor that lived or fought in the War of 1812 or the Civil War or the World Wars this year or even the Vietnam War, this is an excellent database that specializes in those military records. You've seen already that some other databases have them, but this has a specialty. Now, because it's under Ancestry, they're also adding newspapers, interestingly enough, that you might not think of, and they have ethnic records as well, say for African Americans or Native Americans as well. The Sanborn fire insurance maps are a very interesting collection. We'll take a minute and look at those more in depth. The Sanborn Company served insurance companies to help them estimate what the insurance costs would be if there was a problem with the property, of fire and earthquake. And they created this database online has over 660,000 maps charting the growth of more than 12,000 American towns and cities from 1867 to about 1970. So it's an amazing resource. And just for example, I will show you, you can click on Browse Maps, and we go in, and I was doing some research for my great-grandfather, Carl Oscar Dahlin, in the state of Colorado. I know he moved there from Sweden. He lived in Leadville, Colorado, and I know he was married around 1894, so in 1895 I know he was in Leadville. And when you do the search, you can see thumbnail sketches that show a variety of very detailed maps that you would see by going to it. And I picked map number 35. I don't know if you can see that it shows the Arkansas Valley Smelter. I found out through a variety of sources that's where I can see where my great-grandfather worked. I know he lived in a small company-owned town called Bucktown nearby. And so they're fascinating information. It shows names and dates and places. It shows streets, places, addresses in great detail. So a very useful source to both find your ancestors and also find more information out about them and how they lived. History Geo is a new database, a new product we're quite excited about. It is a collection of maps. Now we've had them in print for some years, and they're converting them, and they're not all complete. They've done over 20 states. But if we show you the first landowners project, it takes you to a map of the United States. You can select the state you want to go to and keep clicking and keep zooming in. One really important thing it will show you is the county boundaries. Now, if you've done much research in the 18th, 19th centuries, you'll see that county boundaries change fairly frequently. We're redrawn by various areas. And so it's important to know when you're looking for someone to know where the records are, to know which county they were in. I had the experience, for example, of searching for records what I thought was in one county and found that over the years, the county boundaries had changed and that actually was in a different county. So this is very helpful. You can see it shows the dates and the name of the county. And then you can scroll in even closer, and it gives, we won't talk too much about this, but it'll give the township and range. If you've heard of, say, Pleasant Valley Township, that's where this comes from. It's part of the public land survey system. So it's very helpful to identify where you are, and you can see as you get in detail, you can see, for example, the one in the upper left, this plot of land was purchased by Henry B. Miller in 1894. Now, and that's important to know where he lived. It tells you information, gives dates, names, places. But notice just underneath, there's Caroline S. Miller in 1894 as well. That would suggest with simple research, you could find, was that a spouse? Was that a sister, a relative? And so that would help you not only find Henry, but possibly other members of his family. So a very useful source for doing your work. I want to just show you a little bit about newspapers. We have lots of newspapers. We've invested heavily in online newspapers, and newspapers will be very helpful to you. And I'll just show you a couple of the big ones, because even though they're not necessarily official or original records, which we usually look for good sources to support our conclusions, they can be very helpful in breaking through brick walls where you can't find anything, and also in fleshing out the lives of our ancestors. You can find details about their death and obituaries, about social activities, sports, family activities, and they're a rich resource. So we provide free access to a large number of newspapers. Two of the big ones is one is Newspaper Archive. It has millions and millions of pages, and a very important one. Then also newspapers.com. Typically these large newspaper collections don't overlap a lot, and so you want to look in more than one place. Newspapers.com is an ancestry.com product, and you can see they have well over 100 million pages. And one interesting aspect of newspapers.com is they keep clips that people have drawn out, and they're just to add interest to the research that you might do in newspapers. Let's look quickly at some other departments in the library. First of all, the social science department is just one floor below the BYU Family History Library, first level northeast. So if you go down the elevator or the stairs, you can see it's a large area. We have many family histories. These are in the Library of Congress CS call number, and they're very useful print for research. As I mentioned, we have a number of them online as well. They have county and local histories. Over the years, librarians, administrators, professors have contributed heavily to having a great print collection of county and local histories. And we talked earlier about the accessible archives online histories. The Science and Maps department is another one that is very useful to genealogists. Now, maps are sometimes a neglected resource. Maps can be used to pinpoint where your ancestors lived and worked, which will be very important in finding out where the records might be about your ancestors. There are certain types of maps that give you more information about your neighbors, what some have called family acquaintances and neighbors, which will help you flesh out the stories of your ancestors. They may show also where local churches, schools, cemeteries were located to help you with your research. Of course, the maps collection has, as I said, over 283,000 print maps and a large reference collection. They have atlases, which are maps bound in book form, usually have a theme, for example, atlas maps of Britain or of the world. Have gazetteers. A gazetteer is a dictionary of place names, but they also often include other information that will help you work effectively with the maps of that same area. The maps collection has a very large collection of topographic maps. Topographic maps are large-scale maps that show man-made and natural features of the land, but also show elevation. That means they have contour lines that show how high you are or low you are in relation to the earth. So for example, here we're seeing a map of the American Fork Canyon, and as you see the contour lines, you can see where they rise to peaks, and you can see the elevation or go to a lower elevation. We have many of those in print, but there are also many of those are online now under a new program called TopoView. A major emphasis in the maps area now is geographic information systems, or GIS, and using these resources to help people do their family history. And in fact, they've remodeled and created a space and have staff and students to help with the HBLL geospatial services and training. So you can overlay information on maps online. So a new and very interesting area for us to do. Now there's a question coming in. Which of the online resources are only available at the BYU library? I wish there were a simple answer. In fact, sometimes our contracts change. There is not a list of open source access ones and ones that are more restricted, but the ones along the right-hand side, with the exception of Family Search, these larger, more expensive databases are not available outside of the BYU campus or the Harold B. Lee Library. So I'm sorry there's not a simpler solution to that, but if you get online and can't find it and they will not let you in, that's because the publisher is blocking you due to these financial restrictions. Another gem we have in the Harold B. Lee Library is the L. Tom Perry Special Collections. So far we've been largely talking about what you might call the open stack areas, meaning places where you could they're open to ready access to the public, where you could put a book on a shelf or a bound journal on a shelf or a microfilm in a cabinet or a map in a map cabinet. But they're very important materials useful for family history and genealogical research that are handwritten, that are in manuscript form, that involve letters and diaries and journals and photographs. and that require special protections and special handling, and also that are highly specialized or rare or expensive. And those are the kinds of materials we put in the L. Tom Perry Special Collections. They're on the first level on the north end of the Harold B. Lee Library. If you go back to the Harold B. Lee Library website and go down to the bottom on the right hand side, you can click on Special Collections. It will show you many of the materials and sources they have. Just to give you a few examples of the gems they have there, you can find handwritten diaries. They collect them quite vigorously. That could be from your ancestors. One is from my wife's ancestor, for example. They have veterans' histories, information on military veterans. In fact, they have one on LDS servicemen and women, a project that they're working with others on campus, other professors on campus, called Saints at War. So these are very valuable resources. There's correspondence, handwritten correspondence. Again, you couldn't put it out in the public area. They have city and county histories that are particularly local or rare or expensive. They have a collection of nearly 1 million photographs as well of various sorts. And I just picked one for fun. This one is the fourth word Queen, which is very indicative. This is in Utah. I perfectly like the young man sitting in front. The Queen has her hand on his head. Doesn't he look happy? So it gives a very rich view of life in that period in Utah. That's the end of my presentation. I just want to point out the librarians, staff, and missionaries of the Harold B. Lee Library are passionate about our work and are happy to help you find your ancestors and serve you in your work. And it's not just the BYU Family History Library. The whole library, in many ways, the whole campus is heavily focused on family history. Thank you for your attention.